So the other one I was going to demonstrate, and I think that I can jump to it here. Oh, and I changed my script, so I have to navigate to it. Let me do this off screen because it's a tool I wrote for one of my clients, but I'm pretty sure I can do it without displaying any personalized data, so that won't matter. But the calendar tool is pretty darn awesome. So where is it? Oh, there we go. Okay. So here is it starts off with a blank list view, but here I can say choose date, and this switches me over to a calendar, which I can then pick. I have it set up where I can pick one date, and then when I hit go, it'll actually take that date and drop, captures that text into it. Well, that's not the right way to explain that. It gets the date value for that day, and then we'll drop it into my script in a certain format I've predefined. But I love the functionality that there's a calendar. This is just one view of it. You could have it display a lot of them at one time. You can have it display where you can pick a range. I think right now I have it just picking one day. I can't select a range, but there's some pretty cool functionality. So let me exit out of that because I don't want to go through the next steps of that. And I see a comment here. I need to create printed worksheets to pass around an office with a work piece to automate filling it out. Whew. And so Brad, I see. So hold on, I see some questions coming in. So Brad, keeping it always on top. That is just a function. I didn't. Let's see. Actually, you know what? In my Calendly script, I believe I built that into there. I'm trying to remember. Let me move that over here first real quick, and let me scan it. But it's just a setting on the GUI to force it to always be displayed. It's super easy. When you build your GUI, maybe someone else can answer it, but Brad had asked about how do you keep your GUI always on top? And I know that's just a setting, like you add plus and then say always on top. Let's go back to the simple GUI, and in Studio, I'm gonna hit F1. And let me get it over here so we can see it. But I know it's very simple. Window. I get the feeling someone's typing the answer. Always on top. That looks like that. So this example here, well, that's not actually with a GUI. Oh, this looks good. but I think that looks like it's setting so a certain window, not necessarily a window that you create. Oh, here we go. Windset always on top. Yeah. Oh, okay. And so, yeah, it looks like Pierre answered always on top, on off toggle. It makes the window stay on top of all other windows. Use on. Oh, to turn it on, off. Yeah. I've used it. I don't use it too often because my need just doesn't call for it. But obviously, it's a great functionality to have when you need it. And I saw Ken's question. The worksheets to pass around the office and workpiece automate filling it out. A code scrape routine, pull customer data from customer service data points, and regex the data points, and then use COM to inject them into Word or Excel for printing. Yeah. Was there a question in there somewhere, Ken, or are you just describing something you do, which is awesome, right? I don't know if you saw, we had a good webinar on using COM with Excel. And yeah, COM is pretty amazing. Yeah, I would personally just, it depends on the need, but I'd say Word or Excel are good ones for those, or even automating, putting them in the email with Outlook, depending on if they actually have to have a file versus not. But yeah, there's a lot of great ways for doing stuff like that, and web scraping the data off of whatever, or I guess you said a database, yeah, and regex out the data points. And Alan, I see your question about the preventing flicker. That was just, it was really, you're turning off the redraw, making your update to the page, and then turning it back on. And so let me go in here under, and for a lot of GUI controls and options, you're putting on the plus and minus in the options. Let me, you know what, I'm going to ping a friend of mine, Maestrieth, and let's see if he can jump on the webinar, because he is an amazing GUI person and can answer any of these things in a heartbeat. Yeah, I was reading Ryan's trail there with using Word and inserting bookmarks. Again, hopefully you guys are using COM for that, because it's amazingly easy to do with COM once you get the hang of it. And there's some good. I don't have anything in my website for using COM and Word, but it's I've played around with it a little bit, and it's pretty easy to do. Good, Ryan. And Ken, I was trying to understand your reply there with nope context and wanting to make it GUI so the user can review what is currently stored in memory. Yeah, GUIs are super easy. Well, I shouldn't say easy, because they can be problematic, right, when you're new to them. But there are some cool tools out there for building interfaces for them. Yeah, the Smart GUI Creator is a decent one. There's also one I've used called Alchemist. Let me go back to this list. No, it wasn't that one. Oh, that's Auto GUI, which I would say is somewhat similar to Smart GUI. It's just Smart GUI Creator. It has been around for quite a while, which of course has its pluses and minuses. Because I don't know the last time it's been updated. Now, however, having said that, I think most people would agree with me. If your GUI is very simple and basic, using a tool like Smart GUI Creator or any tool is probably okay. When you get anywhere past that first level, you probably want to start building, or maybe you use something like Smart GUI Creator as a way to start, but I wouldn't use it for advanced stuff, right? You want to start building them from scratch. Bye, Pierre. Thank you for your help on the GUIs. Awesome. So did anybody else have any other questions? Layout, then code, position, functionality. Yeah. Or, of course, non-GUI questions. GUIs are, it's an incredibly vast topic, and there's so many different ways that you can go about creating and using them. Again, we just scratched the surface, but AutoHotkey has a lot of built-in tools that allow you to build and create GUIs. Actually, I'd love input from anybody if they've used other languages for building GUIs and how they think AutoHotkey stands up to those other languages as far as creating GUIs. The fact that it's got built-in things for, yeah, they're kind of bland, right? They look, which personally I love, is like an XP, very simple look. So they're not quote unquote sexy, but boy, they get the job done, right? And for me, I would rather have something that's not as sexy, but it's easy for me to create, update, and for the users to understand, than having it flashy and taking a lot of time to code. I just want to quickly layout and then go to code, position, functionality. You can go windowless and use imagery as per help us tutorials. Yeah, they're amazingly flexible. You can also have transparency, which I personally despise is a strong word, but I don't understand why people use transparency in their GUI. I guess there's a need, but most of the times when I see people use it, it's not a good use of it. It just makes it hard for me. But then again, I have up to 4 monitors I'm using, and so I don't have a limit on the amount of space I have, and I just rather not have a something that I can sort of see through. Let's I mean, again, if anyone has anything they want to focus on, but I was going to say was let's maybe pop open this tab one. Look how simple that is to have the different tabs. So we add a tab, and actually here it's having the second tab. I believe if I just put a pipe here and say third, now when I run this, so now I have a third tab. It's that simple to create a new tab, right? And then of course I'd have to add controls to that tab. But I don't know how you get much easier at creating a new tab than that. Brad, yeah, we have a webinar on arrays, and I actually have a great, well, all right, maybe I'm a little impartial, but I have an array tutorial video that I talk through it. But yeah, we can talk to arrays or objects and how to access them. I mean, especially if you have a specific example in mind. One of the things, actually, let me show you my template for nesting an object. So I want to have it nested, and typically it's like I have a let's say I'm doing web scraping and I have a person's profile page, which is a URL, which of course is going to be unique for each person. And then I have their first name, their last name, their what company they work at, whatnot. I want to stuff under that URL because the URL is unique. And that way I have an object that basically, the very first thing is the key, and the key is unique for each person. And then I have their first name, last name, age, whatever you want. So I wrote myself this little example. Oh, I should have demonstrated some of that. Good drop down list. Oh, here we go. Nest objects under each other. And so this one, here's my data, and it's tab delimited data. And I first create, I'm going to loop over, so I'm storing that in var, and I'm going to loop over var, and I'm going to parse it on either a new line or ignore the line return, depending on what code I'm in or what editor I'm using. And then if it's the header row, I don't even look at it because I have a header row here, and that's what this, if a index is 1, just continue, don't keep processing. But then I'm going to get the, here's the key. I get my first, I start splitting tab using string split, and I get the first one, and I store an empty in my V object. I store a placeholder. I create an object of it. And then after that, now that it's built, because if you don't do that, it won't actually, this won't work. You'll end up with 1 record instead of, how many do I have here? 4. Although, boy, actually, now that I look at this, I can't have, I do have different email addresses. Okay. Oh, and that's part of my reason why I do this. So let me exit out of this script and launch this. And when I run it, so see out here, see how it kept me down to 3, even though there's 4? Well, I did that on purpose because this email address is the same. With the way AutoHotkey works, your key, it will overwrite the second one as it's processing them. And so, or maybe, I don't know. The order should have mattered there. But I'm looking down here and going, what phone number for John? Oh, it is the second one. Okay, because John's in there twice. So the 1322 is there twice. And let's see, where is it? Right in here. So here, after I've stored it in this V object, in this object named V object, I then use a for loop, and I do the key and values, and I'm going to iterate over them, and I'm going to store them in a variable called data, and I'm appending it each time it iterates over them. And K is the index, which is going to be the email address, right? Because this is the key and value. If I change this K here to key, I would need to change this to key right here, right? So that iterates over it, and then I put in a tab, and as I say V, that's what's going to be each of the, I want to say variables, but that's not quite the right term, but the objects under it. And the values, that's what and so V for this guy is, and then say first name, and V last name, and V phone, and V ID, right? It's looking at each one of those, and it puts them into this variable, and then puts in a new line, and then I just dump that new line to my debug window. But that's how you can nest them. All right, let's back up here. I see Ryan, I use GUI tool. You can go with this. I have a quick question. Is there a way to fix a GUI associated with a running app? I've seen docking scripts on the forum. Is that what you're meaning, Ryan? But the docking in my example is you're docking it to a certain spot on your desktop. Now, I think all you'd have to do is get the class ID of the active GUI, and then, of course, get the coordinates to where it is. That's beyond me because, again, I don't work with GUIs a lot, but I'm pretty sure that is possible, that you could basically make a like add an extra menu, let's just say, to like, let's say in Studio here, you could have it always show up like right here, and then if I moved it, it would stay in that same place on the program, right? Of course, you're going to have some issues depending on when it goes off screen or not, or something might be an issue, but I believe you can do stuff like that. You bet. Did anybody else have any other questions? Or I was thinking about oh, and I mentioned it. Let me see. I'm in a new file here. Let me so this again, I use this quick access pop-up to give myself little snippets. And so here I have this is my script for that table view. And this is the actual script. Actually, the one I demonstrated live, I had more data. But here I'm going to run it. And so this is with that data. And so, oh, I haven't saved it. How in the world does it do this without saving the thing? Let me save it. Yeah, I think I saved it in a bad spot. If you guys haven't noticed, normally I work in Sight, but I've switched over to Studio now, and it's a lot easier to program in. But what I'm doing here is I read in my data and store it in var, and then I'm creating a actually this is my function I have. And what's really cool is it's super easy. I can point it to a path of a file, or I can point it to a variable. And the first thing it does is it says, hey, if this thing I pass to it, if this very first thing in the function is a file on my computer, then process it. If it's not, then treat it as a variable, right? And so that's how I don't have to say, well, am I passing it a path or do I actually have data? So it's a quick, easy way to do that. I have the default delimiter set to be a tab, but I could change that and put in a comma here, and then it would look for commas, and it would split my data on commas instead of tabs. Do I want to have a header or not? So I've set defaults here, and the title, I didn't realize I don't remember doing this. Oh, I do. Oh, I'm sorry. It's right here. So my data, that's the title. And then it just simply first creates the object and then iterates over it. If I don't use the header, it does one thing. If I do, it does something else. This is actually controlling the size of it. If I had a certain number, if I have less than 10 columns, it'll set the, is that the width? I think the D columns later. Let's see, where do I use that? Yeah, so the width will be at 400. If I have less than 80, it'll set it to 650. And if it's greater than 80 or greater, it'll set the width to 1100. And so that allows me to not have to always go in and adjust the size, at least with some roughness. And then, let's see. Actually, I don't remember. I think this is saying if rows is greater than 27, use 20. Oh, okay. So I have a little bit of the amount of the height. But then I just iterate over the object. And this is how I'm building my list view. Is I'm parsing out. This is a variadic way, and so this is how you get around having to know ahead of time how many columns you have, and so this will automatically iterate over all of them, and I don't have to keep track of how many there are, and then I adjust the width of the column based off of the header, I believe, but that's how I use that one. And then let's see if I got like one more here I can demonstrate. All of these down here are my GUI type things. This is my template for a drop-down list. And so here's the different red, green, blue, right? And that's here, I have it up here, and I could add a comma for purple. Yes, it's not capitalized, but will survive. So now purple is set to the default, because I believe the very last thing, I've set it in here with the last thing, it'll automatically set that as the default, because it puts, add second pipe. I think if I commented this out and I rerun it, now nothing's the default. And so I just append a last pipe at the end there to set it as default, because when I iterate over it, I think I'm adding that in there. And again here, although, was it Pierre, I think, had mentioned that if I set it to new, if I use this, I don't need to destroy it each time. This default will tell it everything after this until you set a new one. You don't have to keep piping in this name. And that's where I've set the name here and I'm using as default. And then I'm adding things to it. And then down here is where it has that GUI close and button OK. And so that's my little snippet for creating drop-down lists. This is also why it's kind of sad, but this is one of the reasons why I don't remember the syntax that well, because you know I have little templates and I don't have to remember it. I just go find my template and then borrow from it. Let's do this message box alternative. Oh, and actually, so that one, I'm just including it. That's my resizable GUI, and I didn't even include the function because the function's in my library, which we can, what's it called? Oh, actually, you know, in Studio, if you highlight it and hit Alt F1, I can click it and jumps right to it. So this is the function that Make3th helped me with, that I first store that variable and I create a static one so it doesn't have to keep creating it each time. But I called this one 12. I have no idea why I did that. And then I first destroy it. I set it as default. I add up. This is how I'm adding the option here. I say plus resize, which is going to allow it to resize. I'm setting the font size to 12, the color to blue. I think Q5, is that the number of rows by default? Q5. I don't remember what that is. And then the font, the type font. Q5. That is not ringing a bell to me. Does anyone have any recall on what the Q is with that? I don't remember what that is. And then I add the edit field, and here's where I'm piping in. If I don't give it a width or a height, it'll automatically set it to 900 by 600. However, if I do pass those parameters, it'll automatically use those. And I set it to not to wrap, to use a horizontal scroll. And here, I think this is where I'm storing. Well, no, edit window. Is that the H and W? I know this has to do with the ID of the window, but I thought I had to store that. But maybe I am storing it. Oh, no, that's putting it there. I'm storing it. Okay. So see how this is HWND and then it says edit window? I am storing that here, and then here it's like the V in front of it, right? This is the HWD, which is, I believe, the window handle or handle to the window, and I'm storing that, and then this is how later I go back and resize it. So this is a cool, easy way to create a, let's demonstrate it. Oh, demonstrate it here. So and let's see, that's data, that's here. I'll put a return here. I don't need it, but I always feel better if I do that. Duplicate hotkey. Oh. Yeah, I think because, oh no. Yeah, I did that on my library. That's bad. That is bad. Let's close that. My bad. And I'll come back into, let's see here. This one. And I don't need any of this. Save it. Launch it. Oh. Get rid of that. Do this again. And let me get rid of this stuff. There we go. So this is showing it here, right? Again, I can resize this, but if I had passed in, let's say 75, 76, fine, and 200, save, reload, and now it makes it in that size. And so that's why I created a function for it, was it makes it really easy to leverage it. I don't have to go recreate it every time. So obviously I would want this to be quite a bit wider and not as tall. There we go. Close enough. But yeah, getting back to the library of it, that's I should just do it here. Oh, F1. Oops. Anyway, did anybody else have any questions? I think we're out of stuff of me blabbering about, unless, again, if you have any questions. I'm no expert on it, but I can talk to any of the examples I shared on. Or it doesn't have to be GUI related, right? If you have other questions, let's open it up. And by the way, our next webinar, we're going to be taking a deeper dive into encoding and dealing with when you need to use one of the other, what in the world the BOM, the byte order mark is, the different versions of ASCII and ANSI and UTF-8, UTF-16, and big endian and little endian. I assume there's a medium endian. I'm kidding. There's not. But what they mean, how to detect what ones you should be using, especially if it's a file you get like LinkedIn when you export data from your contacts. It doesn't have the byte order mark, and in most programs it'll import incorrectly. And so ways to work around it, way to discover which one you should be using. Jean Lalonde, he approached me after the last webinar when we touched on this subject and asked if we'd be interested. And at first I thought, well, I don't know how interested people would be, but it can be incredibly, it can be an incredible time suck when you have an issue with encoding and you're trying to figure out what's wrong with your program, because you try reading a lot of the posts about it and they're very dry and they're not clear. And of course they're not working examples of stuff in AutoHotkey, and they don't go into the why and how to troubleshoot. They often will tell you a little bit about stuff, but it's really confusing. And so we thought it'd be a good webinar to help dive a little deeper. Oh, cool. Yes. If you just Google the hot string question, if you just Google Udemy and hot string, it will pop up, because we're really the first ones that have created anything. Udemy and hot string. That's it. And like we said, it's free right now, and it'll probably be free for a while. But we just love get the reviews, and of course we're not trying to make money, really. It's more about getting people to use hot string. The only thing I'd say about hot strings is, none of us are using them nearly enough. And I want to say like 1,000 of them. I don't know. I have a lot of them, but man, they're such great, easy ways. So even in my coding, right? So in here, I showed you this tool where I can hit a button and pull up my syntax, right? And it will dump in my text for me. But for things I use a lot, I don't even want to do that, right? So I thought, apparently that's not what I thought it was. No, it's not list view. Oh, it's loop. So that's a hot string I have for looping, using a for loop over objects. And actually I have a different one when it's not a for. I don't want to use a for loop, but a regular loop. And so those are things I do a lot. And I'm like, why not have that at the touch of my fingers, right? It can just pop up. Or for, of course, things like email addresses. It's so easy to have, as much text as you want. And then there are some other cool tools that can you could actually send rich text format, which I didn't demonstrate in that course, although I meant to allude to it to say here are some examples out there. But if anyone's interested in how to send hot strings and have the what's being sent as being rich text format, like a hyperlink or something, let me know and I'll forward that to you, the specific one. Cool. Well, I guess we're good unless someone has. Oh, thanks for posting it there, Jesus. But if anyone has any other questions, again on anything, but my throat's getting a little dry. I'm not used to talking so much. All right. You're welcome, Ryan. Thank you guys, all you guys. Hope it helped. I know it wasn't as in-depth as probably a lot of you wanted, but GUIs are very complex, but they are amazing once you get the hang of them. Hope you guys stay warm and healthy. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.